Heyo, this is Anime Addiction 00, and holy crap, this is like the quickest I've ever done it. I guess because the next one in line, the Sram, which are kind of like fighter assassins that have a few trick up their sleeves, which more make them assassins instead of just a plain old fighter type of thing. I guess they're kind of easy to understand, and I do still understand that they are OP, overpowered, and all that good stuff, so like the last one, I'm going to look at some of the spells and explain what they do ahead of time, just in case I'm not able to waste my turns, or in case it takes too long to waste my turns in some fights I might get into. So at least then if you see me use them, or if I say the name, maybe it'll ring a bell or something like that. Anyway, the three elements that they use are fire, water, and air. The fire ones seem to be okay with damage. The most damaging one is their last one, but let's start in order here. So one thing that's special with the Srams is that they generate a thing called weak point, and those points kind of go towards their final skills, and sometimes I guess they can do other things, but I'm pretty sure the weak point is only for the last one, because I haven't really seen the weak point having an effect on anything else. Anyway, First Blood is a very weak first level fire spell, 2 action points, 1 movement point. Decently powerful though, and it actually has a slight AoE with doing a 3 square line. And also a very good weak point generator, as the description says, because per hit you get 15 levels of weak point, but since it generates so much, you can only use it twice per turn, so at least you're not generating too much, kind of. Next one is Torment, a somewhat strong-ish fire spell that is like a slight AoE, kind of like the Sacrier, with that one fire spell, I forget the name of it already, but you just, it's not like a full square around you, it's just like the 4 directions. I can't talk already. Great, even though I just did one like the other day, technically. So yeah. Anyway, this one also applies a status effect called Hemorrhage. And once you apply that onto an enemy, if you stack that level, because it can stack, they'll pretty much take extra damage at the start of their turn. It also generates 15 levels of weak point. So, Cold Blood is very weak and low cost spell at 2 AP. Of course, not very damaging either, but you can use the Hemorrhage to your advantage if you if you'd rather take healing over time damage, because you can use this spell to consume the Hemorrhage, and depending on the level, you heal more hit points. And you also generate 10 levels of weak point per use. I don't believe there's a limit. So yeah, you can pick that if you don't want the damage over time, need an emergency heal or something like that. Blood Dry is a somewhat decent fire spell, kind of weak, but not as weak as Cold Blood. Fair cost or cheap cost during the low levels when you don't have much AP at 3. It also has up to 3 square range. It generates 10 levels of weak point per hit. It also gives them Hemorrhage plus whatever levels depending on how strong it is. And if you cast it on yourself, you can place a laceration trap, which I'll get to their specialties down there in a moment. Just try and keep that in mind. Okay, so now we have Execution. This is the most expensive one. The most expensive spell they have to cast at 6 AP, only 1 range, but they can use it to consume. The best way to use this is that if the weak point is 100, which is the max, it takes away a lot more health than usual. I mean, you can use it whenever you want to, but it's only like about 12 hit points. With my level right now, it's very weak. And if it's 100, it'll become a base damage of 20 hit points, and you also get a Wakfu point back, and you consume all the weak point, and you also get 10% extra final damage on any target with hit points less than 35%. So yeah, it's definitely an execution. Strongest spell they probably have, but you need to save up all your weak points. Water Branch is a bit tricky because it focuses on stealing attributes and buffing yourself with it. Klepto Sram for a first level water spell is kind of difficult to do multiple times because it's very costly at 5. It's also kind of weak base damage, unless it's because I can't level it up too much because it's such a high cost. But it generates a lot of weak point for 20 levels, and you also gain 1 level of MP loot. So when you stack those up, you'll be able to cause the loss of some MP from the enemy once you cast a certain spell, or you can buff yourself with 1 movement point per level of the loot you have. So for example, you have 2 levels, it should work that you give yourself 2 movement points, and or you can take away 2 from the enemy. That's how I assume it should work, because I don't really pay too much attention to these too much, because this is pretty much the only water spell I use, called Rascalry. At 4 AP, it's not too expensive. It also has one of the longest ranges of the Srams spells at 1 to 4 squares. It also has a slight area of effect, which you'll see because I'll most likely use it. It's pretty strong at generating weak point, a very high damagey spell in general, and also gives you +1 level of damage loot. When you cast that certain spell, which is actually next in line, you can either steal damage from the enemy, or at least weaken them, or you can buff yourself depending how much damage loot you have. Oops, the next one is Larceny, and that's the one, well, okay, first of all, it can be a basic weak spell to hit them with for 10 levels of weak point per hit. I don't think it increases yet. It stays the same unless you use passes, which I'll also show in a minute, or once I get down there. And you can also, yeah, actually it increases. But yes, it can be used as like a up to 2 range weak water spell, and that's when you also apply the penalties if you hit them with like Klepto Sram, Rascalry, Swindle Sram, or anything like that. And you can cast it on yourself for the bonus loot. So like you use Rascalry a couple times, now you have like 5 damage loot. You can either use Larceny on the next enemy you hit, and they'll get the penalty loot. So here, depending on the level of penalty loot, which increases the more the spell increases. So for example, at my level, penalty loot is they get -12 dodge per lock loot, -12 damage per damage loot, and -1 MP per level of MP loot. So of course it does increase the higher it goes for dodge and damage considered. And the next one, which I mentioned briefly but didn't get to yet, was Swindle Sram, a decently damaging spell and pretty low cost at 3 AP. It generates 10 level weak point per hit, and you steal the lock loot. So it's like if an enemy is locking you too much, you can use that and then steal it with Larceny, so you can get more dodge, or they don't lock you as much, or you can buff yourself so you have more locks, so you can trap enemies more. If you cast it on yourself, you can cast a silent trap. And the last one they have is a very cheap spell that isn't really meant to be damagey, but it's meant to be a very supportive type thing, and also a very quick way to recover some Wakfu points if you really need some. This is the only class I know that has so many ways to recover Wakfu points. Overpowered, I tell ya! Anyway, very cheap again at like 2 AP and 1 movement point, not very strong, but your weak point is recommended to at least be equal to or over 50, and the power increases very slightly, and you also heal 1 point whatever hit points per level of weak point. So if you max it up to 100, you're pretty much guaranteed to level 100 hit points, even at low levels, which is pretty darn good. You also get a Wakfu point back if you need it, and it consumes all the weak points. And also, as you level it, you also get more health back per level of weak point, and also get stronger and such. Okay. The air branch, probably one of the most strongest branches because of all the backstabbing they can do. The first one is Forceful Blow, kind of expensive at 4 AP, and it has a range of 1, but also extends like 3 squares after that. It's also very strong at generating weak points, so it can be good for AoE. It's a pretty strong air spell. Fear is a very weak air spell, but it's mostly used for other tactics or to get enemies away from you. The enemy has to be in front of you, and then depending on the target you choose, you can push it up to 1 or 2 squares away. It doesn't need a line of sight, which I find odd because it has to be in front of you either way, but I guess it means that means you can click behind you to move it. So like I said, pretty weak, not much weak point either, but you can also use it to push allies around with the fear spell if they need to move around some, which you might see me do once I get to the double and all that. And this is another OP thing I think they have is Wily. A fairly cheap spell even at the low levels because it only costs 3 AP and 1 movement point. You don't need a line of sight. You can teleport up to 3 squares away, and you teleport behind the target, deal a crap ton of air damage, and since you're behind them, you'll deal even more damage, and of course even more than that if you build around backstab damage. It also generates 15 level of weak point. And what's kind of funny about this spell is that since it could be cast up to 2 times during the early levels, it only has 1 use per target, but if things are like in a straight line and you just happen to have all the movement points and stuff for it, you can teleport in a line all across the enemy and just do some damage along the way. It's funny when that happens. Anyway, Tricky Blow is a very cheap air spell. It's kind of like Fear, but except it moves you away by 2 spells instead of you choosing where to push them away. But it generates a lot more weak point, and you can cast it on yourself to do a Foggy Trap. So basically they also have escapes, they have damage, they have Wakfu point recovery, and this, I still think Srams are ridiculous. I heard that they're going to go through a change so that they wouldn't be so overpowered, but I guess they didn't. Either that or the changes are so insignificant I don't notice. Anyway, the last branch, goodness, I don't know why I can't talk, I apologize. So the last air spell is Trauma. It's an okay damagey air spell, but it gets stronger if your weak point is equal to or greater than 75. Of course, they get more damage. You recover the Wakfu point if you need one. Consumes all the rest of the weak points, and 10% final damage from behind. So this one's mostly those for backstabbers and all that. Of course, you can use it whenever you want to, it's just you'll get the most damage output that way. So onto their specialties. Excuse me. One thing that the Sram can do is go invisible. It's a very expensive one. You can kind of see why they have so much Wakfu point recovery, I suppose, because a lot of their active spells cost 2 or more Wakfu points, even if you do max them. Anyway, invisibility, you become, well, invisible, and they can't really detect your presence unless you use a spell, and that includes those things that come after the turn bonuses. Like if you get the extra 2 AP or the shield, it will point out where your location is, but they can still move around if they have movement points left to try and trick you and stuff. But once they do any sort of damage, they become visible again. But if you use Fear when you're invisible, you'll just push them around without revealing yourself. I believe that's how it works. And once you're transparent, after you're invisible, you're transparent for 3 turns and you can't become invisible again. And if you max it out, instead of costing 2 AP and 3 Wakfu points, it'll only cost 2 Wakfu points, and then you can also cast it on ally up to 4 squares away. Scram is, I think, a pretty decent one if you want some extra movement points. You can also use it on allies so they can no longer be locked. As you increase the level, you get more movement points, and it costs slightly less. Not really too much more, but you also get more range, so you can cast it on an ally. You can only have 1 use per turn, though, regardless of the level. And Double, which I actually leveled for a change. I heard that that was even more overpowered when Wakfu was first beginning, but I have no idea. I think it's pretty helpful now. Anyway, I just decided to level it because why not? Anyway, Double, I almost said Wakfu again. Double pretty much does what it says. It summons a double and has its own stats. Level 1, it has 12% of the max of your max hit points, possesses some characteristics of the Sram, it cannot be healed, and has a certain amount of AP and movement points. And you have to make sure you can only summon it when there are 0 summons in play, so regardless of your control, I don't think you can summon more than 1. Has 4 turn cooldown, so if it happens to die too soon, you still have to wait like 3 more turns if it died during one of those turns. And as you increase the level, it will decrease the cost. Only by 1 Wakfu point, though. Other than that, it still costs 4 action points. And the Shadow Traps. Okay, so this one I might not be able to show off too well because I didn't level it this time, like with another Sram I played around with. So this is where it kind of gets interesting in a way, I think. Or they seem more assassin-y because they're all trickery and whatnot. So, with the Silent Trap with Swindle Sram, you cast that on yourself, the Swindle Sram, then you can cast Trap of Silence. That's when you use that spell, which I'll probably show in an actual fight. And then you cast it somewhere, and it has a small area of effect, and any enemy that steps on it will take damage, and they'll also get up to -2 AP. They can't see the trap, so you just have to make sure you time it right. Although I could swear that some of the enemies do see it, because they just conveniently walk around it so many times. Ugh. Anyway, Laceration Trap is when you cast Blood Dry on yourself, then you cast Shadow Trap, and it'll make a Hemorrhage Trap. It has a small +sign area of effect, just like Trap of Silence, but it deals damage and causes them to have hemorrhage. So if you're trying to stack up that hemorrhage stat, the laceration trap can come in handy to try to hurt them even more. And the fog trap is very difficult, and I most likely cannot show that one off, but here's what I understand from it. If you can maybe max it out so you can have it cost up to 3 AP, and then you're able to have 2 uses per turn to actually cast them in the same turn, you can actually have the fog trap help. So the fog trap has no area effect, it only has the 1 square, but if you have 2 fog traps laid out at different squares, well, you're going to have them in different squares, but I'm just saying that the enemy who steps on one of the fog traps will be teleported to the next one, so you can use that to kind of screw around and change positioning. It says 6 range max between traps, so you can't have them go too far away, but in any case, it's kind of interesting tactic to work with, but you're going to have to probably max it to get the most use out of it. And once you cast those spells on yourself, the Tricky Blow, Swindle Sram, and Bled Dry, the AP is refunded to you, so you can cast Shadow Trap, which apparently the AP cost of the spell is also given back once you cast it. I think. Either that or they're talking about what I just said with those spells. And the next one is Stabber. The cheapest one so far, but it's mostly a self-buff if you think you're going to get a critical hit or if you're going to attack from behind. Because maxed out, it gives you a percentage damage of final damage during the attack from behind or a critical hit. So if your crit is high or if you know you're going to do your backstab, you'll get a more percentage damage bonus. Of course, the higher it is, the more you get. And also the cheaper it is, if you want to save AP to continue your onslaught of backstabbing. And their passives, oh goodness, their passives. So remember what I just told you about all that extra backstab damage? Here's the first passive, Shadow Master. You level this to get extra backstab damage, and just up to level 10 you get extra 20%. And when you become invisible, and on the next turn I believe? Yeah, when you become invisible and on the next turn, you'll get 10% final damage for the next direct attack damage spell. So you use that, if you can use Stabber, and then you use your Wily to get a backstab, or if you can just move up to them, it hurts. It sounds like it hurts. And of course, the more you level it, the worse it is. I can't help but be stunned every time I look at all these sets. Sramistic is when you buff up your initiative and you generate additional levels to weak point, up to a max of 40 initiative and 5 level to generation to weak point. So for example, First Blood will give me 20 levels of weak point per use instead of 15. So yeah, pretty strong if you want to rack up those weak points and also move a little bit faster. Sramulus is something that gives you lock if you're going to be a frontline fighter most of the time. You also get 10% extra, or a percentage extra final damage on targets with hit points less than 35, which would probably go pretty well with the Fire Branch and Execution, since that already gets 10% final damage if you save up your weak points. So those two probably go fairly well together. Actually pretty much everything on their thing sounds useful, but it's going to take forever to try and max everything, or if it's even possible at all. Anyway, getting ahead of myself again, I'm sorry for all this rambling. Next one after that is Sram Reflex. This one gives you dodge and control, and with the control, since you can't summon more doubles, I assume it might be for more traps, because it controls also for devices, so you might be able to put more traps out, but you still can't use them more than 2 of them a turn, according to the Shadow Trap. And if you max this out, if you max this out, you get 60 dodge, 2 control, and you reduce the AP cost of Stabber and Scram by 1. So if you're going to be using those spells, at least you can make those cost less too. If you only level it up to 10, you only reduces AP cost of Stabber by 1. So if you're only going to plan on going that far, at least you got that. And Sram to the Bone, it raises their critical hit chance depending on how much dodge and luck they have, max of 10%, and the higher you raise it, the less dodge and luck you need for the bonus to take effect. So for example, right now, at like level 1, it'll be 1% extra critical hit chance per 39 luck or dodge that I have, but level 20, it'll be 1% extra for whatever 20 sets of 20 luck or dodge I have. So if you're going to be leveling those up anyway, you're going to be getting even more bonuses. Okay, I should actually get in a fight before I get too bored, so I'll leave the stats for last. Alright, let's try one so far. I'm gonna keep the sidekicks there just in case I get too stupid and mess up. Hopefully it doesn't run too far. Of course you can see through the reeds. I can never see through the reeds. So yeah, oh wait, yeah, you can actually shoot through them this time. Okay, so what should I start with? I think I'll actually start with the double, because that's an interesting thing to show. I'm gonna cast that. And I'll use Fear, just because you can do that, just to show like the ally thing. I'll use Fear to push them one square ahead so they can save their MP. Skip my turn. The double moves exactly after you. And they have their own different set of skills. You can use 6 AP and 1 movement point, so they get extra 30 luck, and they add 50% of max hit point to armor because they're significantly weaker than you. And this lethal contact is a 2-turn cooldown, but anytime you do damage to it up to 3 times, it does extra damage. Or you pretty much hit twice. So you see how I hit again after I did that basic attack? It did Scathing Blow, and since I used that mark, it actually pretty much did damage twice. And then other than that, it has its own version of Fear, so it can also push enemies and allies around. So yeah, I really like the lethal mark because it can sometimes help me whittle down those hit points if I really need to. So since they're right next to it, I don't want to hurt them, so I'll use Wakfu Sram just to use it. It's very basic though, but it hit twice because of lethal mark, but that was the 3rd time, so that's done. I use Fear just to push it behind there because it's silly. I'll have them... Well, it can't really move anyway, so I'll just wait there. Alright, so... Next one I'll do is... Forceful Blow. Okay, I'll move one away, then do it. So you can see the full range of it. And then... I can't do Tricky Blow because it won't work, but Blood Dry I'll show for the range as well. You don't get to see the hemorrhage effect, though. I honestly don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I'm doing it this way again because in a battle, I only have 30 seconds to try and explain what I'm doing, and usually, if I don't get what I'm trying to say or explain quick enough, then I gotta skip my turn and wait to go again. And I think that might take a little bit longer. So I figure if I at least try and explain what the spell's doing, you see them in action, maybe it'll make more sense. I don't know, maybe I'm just being hopeful, because I'm probably not really qualified to make these videos, but I'm doing it anyway. Alright, so this is a perfect opportunity to show Wily and First Blood. I use Wily here. You can only cast it where you're going to teleport on up to 3 squares. Let's do that, and then I will use First Blood twice, because I can. And that's the area of effect. Next I'll show Hemorrhage. If I didn't already, I don't think I did. But yeah, that's the area effect I'm talking about. And since I used... oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I think I should have had some water or something. Anyway, since I cast that to get Hemorrhage on it, I'll actually consume it to heal a little bit of hit points with Cold Blood. So yeah, at least that's how that works. And I think I might kill it, so you won't see it. No, it worked. Okay, so Tricky Blow is what moved me the 2 squares away. And last, I'll use Rascalry because you can see the area of effect. It's the one that has the pretty decent area effect and a pretty long range for mostly a close combat fighter, but I don't know. It's also pretty freaking strong even if you don't level water, so I always end up using Rascalry if I want to stay away from the enemy for a bit and poke them. Alright, is there another decent one? I'm gonna try and plant some fish. I'll be right back. And back. That didn't take as long as I thought it did, so hopefully this works out again. So far, these aren't really too bad. So what else can I do? I did Rascalry, I did Wakfu Sram, it's a basic thing. Swindle Sram, I don't really think... Oh! I should do the freaking... What's its face? Alright, so... I'll try and go invisible just because to show you. And then... I'll cast Swindle Sram on myself. That's where it shows you the location you are. You get your AP back, then you cast Shadow Trap. Of course, they're gonna move around to hit them because they can't see me right now. I'll at least get this guy up here to distract him. You don't do anything. And unfortunately, he didn't go into the trap, and he pretty much knows where I am. So, at the moment, I'll just try and use this combo instead. I'll use Stabber, and I'll try to use Wily to get extra damage. So if you up that, it's not really too significant because I didn't really boost my backstab or anything like that, but yeah, it can get pretty nasty. Trying to boost up the Wakfu points or whatever things. Okay, so let me try. I might die though before I get to do it. That's the issue with trying it like this, I guess. Yeah, you're a balloon. Yeah, it died. Okay. So, didn't really work like I hoped. I'll cast this on myself anyway, and then I'll use... Oh, wait, I can't. Can I cast it over that to replace it? Oh, no, it just gets rid of it. And since there's only 2 uses per turn... Oops. Okay, so at least you'll learn through my stupidness what works. So, what sucks is that you can actually generate weak point even if there's nothing there. Well, it doesn't suck, but I guess it's OP because, see, my weak point is up to level 87 even though I didn't really hit anything. But I should be able to... Or not! Dang it, I can't reach! Ugh! Alright, let's see if I can get my double to do something. Get them over here. Okay, push them over here. And give them more locks so hopefully can't run. Dang it, it still ran! Now I don't have enough to do it, so I can't show it. Stupid. I was hoping to show the bloody ripoff with how good it heals if you save it up, but it requires 1 movement point and I can't get that far. And I can't cast Scram because I don't have enough Wakfu points, because I used a whole bunch. So I guess I'll just use this one. Because I do get a Wakfu point back at least. So I still can't... Alright. So... Yeah, I still can't reach him, you stupid! Alright, I'm just gonna have the sidekick kill him because this is stupid. Come on, move. Okay, well I showed you invisibility and kind of some basics of how the shadow traps work. You get more range as you level it. You still get only 2 uses per turn. Oh no, wait, you get 2 uses. Yeah, you get 2 uses per turn, so I'm not sure if that means if you buff it up, you can set 2 different ones, or you can do what... Yes, it's otherwise cast on a trap, the AP cost of the spell is given back, or you remove it. So yeah, I just screwed up royally, because apparently I don't understand the traps too well, but... Excuse me. You can get up to 6 range, and then paired up with those area of effects, laceration, and silence traps that can really help you in your favor. For a little bit of extra damage, or to remove some AP so they can't beat on you as much. I think that's pretty much all I can really show you, because Scram just gives you a buff. I showed you invisibility, I showed you the double, I showed you the trap, I did Stabber. Okay, so, if it wasn't already obvious which stats you could probably go for if you remember his stats anyway. As far as intelligence goes, maybe lifesteal if you want, because you're going to be most likely focusing on dealing a bunch of damage, so you can at least steal a little bit of health. I don't believe that increases your hero resistance, but the bloody ripoff does increase your hero's healing resistance. I just can't talk. And you'll probably want some hit points to at least survive a little bit. I just always give myself regeneration now. I don't know why, it's just my new thing. I'm not sure if that's really a smart choice or not. And here's just, depending what damage you want to go with. Of course, Earth is no help here. So I think the most popular ones are either fire or air, but air is definitely the most powerful one, or popular one because it is the most OP one with all the backstabbing, and you'll probably see the opportunities here. So initiative is apparently important for them, judging by the Sram Mystic passive. Initiative is important, and also lock and dodge, but honestly I think if anything you want lock if you're going to be up close to your enemy, because they have plenty of escapes to use, whether making them run away or you use your wily to get behind them to get out of a mob, and then you use what's it called? The tricky blow to move 2 squares away, and if you happen to have anything left over, you can use invisibility to really get away from stuff. So yeah, I think you have plenty of escapes where dodge isn't really too important. So I would just say initiative and maybe lock, but that's just me. For as far as this goes, this is where it gets ridiculous. You can level damage from behind to get even more bonus damage from like stabber, and using the bonus with invisibility and shadow master. So if you level up damage from behind and critical hits, that's going to hurt. So far I just level up critical hits because I just like the little noise, and doing a crit is fun. Other than that, if you focus on the air, the damage from behind is going to really hurt, or just damage from behind in any case, since they can easily get behind anyone with that wily spell. Jeez. And for the final one, again, it's pretty hard to say. Final damage I might consider, maybe just super down the line, because they already have all these bonuses with final damage, so you can get even more bonuses. But probably Wakfu points, or movement points, and damage and action points are more important, because, you know, action points do more stuff, movement points move more, and since a couple of their spells cost movement points, that's pretty important. So as usual, action and movement are probably more important than anything else, if you can even have a chance to level it up again, because I don't know all the level increments. I know you can get the first one at level 25, and after that it's like 75, I believe. Yeah, 75, and then after that it's probably way out there, probably 100 and something. So at most I can see you doing it 3 times. I don't know if anymore you can do that. So, anyway, sorry if I bored you to death, and again I apologize for all the speech impediments. I'm surprised I understood this so far, but then again, I have tried Sram on multiple occasions, so I guess I needed to just do it multiple times to try and understand it more. Hopefully I gave you an idea of what they are, and they are just OP, and yes, I actually do get harassed by Srams a lot in PvP and PKs. That's always fun. Anyway guys, bye!